Welcome to Write Out Loud, a podcast where words come alive. Creativity reigns, and every episode is an adventure in storytelling. Whether you're a seasoned scribe or just penning your first tale, this is your weekly audio escape into the world of writing. I'm Matt, your guide through the playground of prose, where we discuss everything from spine-tingling plots to heartwarming narratives. Alongside me is my outstanding co-host, the ever-lovely, incredible, amazing, snaptastic, scrumptious, and magical Christina.
Snaptastic, that's a new one.
It is. I figured you'd kind of like that one.
Yeah.
It's,
Wait, do you have to say this every single time? Do you record this by itself every single time? You need to just do it once and have it. Plus what?
It
changes.
It's different every time.
Changes it every time. We got a new intro.
Yeah.
Yes. That's fantastic, clever, and so creative.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes. So grab your favorite writing snack, settle in, and let's embark on this delightful journey together. Welcome to Write Out Loud, where your voice is the story we're telling. I'd really like to start off today by welcoming a very, very special guest to the podcast. And this is author Jenn Sterling. Jenn is a Southern California native who grew up working in the famed Hollywood entertainment industry. And she has multiple New York Times and USA Today best-selling romance novels that have been translated into several languages and have sold over 1 million copies worldwide. We are extremely excited to have you here, Jenn. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, you guys. I'm so happy to be here.
Welcome.
Absolutely.
Welcome.
We're
Welcome
always
to you
tickled to
guys.
have guests drop by, you know?
I hope I get to be scrumptious.
Yeah.
I think everybody's scrumptious. It's
Scrumptious.
just how it goes. Well, awesome. Jenn, tell us a little bit about yourself, your writing journey, and maybe what you're most known for.
Sure. So my name is Jenn Sterling. I write under J. Sterling. I write all romance books. I have sports romance, contemporary romance. I have this really cool bundle that's the fun for the holidays. It's a book a month for the whole year, which I just am so proud of because they're so much fun. I never knew that I wanted to write. I had no idea that I wanted to write fiction books at all. I knew that I had one story in me that I wanted to tell. I got fired from my job, went out and bought a laptop the next day and started writing that book and just thought okay, well, I'm just going to write this one book and then that'll be it. And that was very much not it. So that one book definitely opened up a creative floodgate that I really did not know was there. And I am obsessed and I love writing romance books. It makes me so happy. And I would say that I am best known for The Perfect Game, which is a baseball romance, sports romance, new adult romance. That is by far my best-selling series.
Wow. How do you get from, being fired? How do you pick yourself up and go, I'm going to go for this? I mean, that takes a lot of guts.
I would say, I'd been so beaten down by that point. It was such a horrible working environment that, while being fired was so awful because I've never been fired in my life. And I also just couldn't believe they weren't just moving me into a different department. Do you know what I mean? Oh, hey, this isn't going to work here. Let's at least put Jenn over here because she's an asset to this company. But apparently I wasn't. So getting fired, I was all right, well, what are the 3 things I really like to do? Okay, I really want to write this one book. I potentially would like to open up a bakery making cupcakes, right? And
Yes.
I also love photography and I love taking pictures. So I literally went back and created 3 separate business websites. And it was photography, cupcakes, and then writing. And I built them all at the same time and I started doing all 3. Hands down, the cupcakes were the hottest, best, most sales, and I was miserable.
Oh.
Miserable. I was like, God, these are so time consuming. I have to make them so, it just was so much pressure. The photography was the second busiest. And I also was like, wow, I really don't like this either. Like, this is not fun. I just loved writing once I started doing it. And of course, it was a thing that was not making me any money. It was funny doing those three things kind of really quickly. Do you figure out what you're passionate about and what
Yeah.
you just enjoy kind of as a hobby?
Yeah.
So there's definitely, I just went for it. I never took a break. Like, I never stopped once getting fired. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just went into the next.
Yeah, you didn't look for the next job. You decided, I'm going to create it.
And I
Yeah.
was going on interviews, but I'll tell you that, like, it felt wrong. Like, I knew in my gut, I'm not supposed to be doing this anymore. But, you know, your brain is like, hello, you need money. You
Right.
need an
Yeah.
income.
Yeah.
So I'm still applying for jobs and going on interviews. But the whole time I'm like, please don't offer me this position. Like, because I'll have to take it.
Yeah.
And I knew I didn't want to. So it's just crazy how things kind of work out
Yeah.
like that.
So at what point did you say to yourself, okay, I don't like bakery, even though I'm making a lot of money at this, and I really want to go for the. So at what point do you let go of the bakery, of the photography?
I would say pretty early on, within like months.
Okay,
Was it
yeah.
so obvious to me that I was just like, wow, I really don't want to do this. I'm not finding joy in doing this. I really like the writing. And you know what? It probably was when I had a second idea for a book. So once I realized, like, oh my gosh, like, I have another idea of a story I want to write. I think that's when probably everything fell into play, where I was like, this is what I want to pursue, because I never knew I had a book 2 in me.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I would say it was that.
So at that point, you're thinking, okay, so this is a series. After you write the first book, you're like, wait a minute.
Not a series.
Not a
Nope.
series. Standalone.
No, just a second book idea.
a second book idea.
Yeah, just another story.
Yeah. So were you one of those people that when growing up, first of all, were you a reader? Second of all, did you ever think, like, I like creating stories, or
No.
you just got that one idea and I thought, I'm going to go for the one?
Yeah, I mean, I was not a big reader, like, as a kid. I definitely, like, went through a phase where I read a bunch of Nora Roberts books, right? And I just really enjoyed them. And then I didn't read for a long time. I think it's probably because I was, like, a younger single mom.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably, like, just was not spending my free time in the AOL chat rooms. You know, I wasn't reading.
Yeah.
But I just talked about this the other day too, was that I was asking people what started them on their reading journey, or like what book or author do they remember reading. And I remember as an adult, like, it was Twilight. The Twilight series got me, but I didn't want to read anything else after that. I just wanted to read that series. So that was very interesting. Like, that didn't make me want to be like, oh my gosh, what can I read next? I didn't care I just wanted to read that. So I don't know why I'm weird and broken in that way. But once I decided to start writing, I mean, obviously now and starting then, I read basically nothing but indie authors.
Yeah.
It's so rare that I will ever read a traditionally published author. I just don't. And I really enjoy indie books.
Yeah.
I think they're very underrated and overlooked.
Yeah.
And
why do you think that is? Is it because they're more
because they're self-published, they're not as in your face. I mean, obviously now when I go into my Target, every single book in there is somebody I know.
Yeah.
So that's like really exciting, but that's so new.
Yeah.
Right? So typically if you're walking into a store, the books that are on the shelves are not self-published authors.
No.
They're just not. So I think that, like, inaccessibility and how you would have to be looking for a self-published author to get into that world. But it's like, I think once somebody read a indie author, even if they didn't know they were doing it, I feel like the next books I would be recommended would be like another indie author and another indie author and another indie author. I mean, if you look at the Amazon top 100, 95 of top 100 are Kindle Unlimited books, and they're and they're mostly indie self-published authors, which is
Right.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did you, when you first started, I mean, you were self-published, I'm taking it. And when did you had mentioned before we started recording that you had been in Kindle Unlimited at one point. Like, how did that evolution kind of come about?
Well, when I started writing, there was no Kindle Unlimited. And I definitely tried to get an agent and tried to traditionally publish because I was like, this is what you have to do, right? There is like, at that time as well, we're talking 2009, 2010, self-publishing was like, oh, you only do this if you fail, right? Like you're a failure, you're a loser if you have to self-publish and nobody will pick up your book. And I remember just being like, oh my gosh, if I get one more email rejection, that's it. I'll just be a failure and I'll just self-publish. And then I got that rejection. And I was like, well, I guess I'm self-publishing. And I mean, I love it. I love self-publishing. I love everything about it. And so there was no Kindle Unlimited. And when the Kindle Unlimited program eventually got introduced, like, I was not going to be in it because I was selling everywhere. I think it was once I signed a deal with Amazon Publishing, they had bought The Perfect Game and they bought the series and they put the book in KU. And then I was like, well, I can't have like one series in Kindle Unlimited and none of my other books are in the program. So I moved everything over for a certain amount of time. And then I don't want to do that anymore.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was it the Kindle Unlimited that really caught traction with your sales and things? I know.
No.
Okay. Tell us about the journey to becoming a
Yeah.
bestseller.
The Perfect Game was 100% word of mouth. There was no Kindle Unlimited. It came out in 2012. It was just during a time when us self-published authors were basically on Facebook all day long, talking to reader groups, talking to people, like talking to our readers. And that just word of mouth blew up The Perfect Game into something I could have never imagined. Selling 100,000 copies in 5 weeks was like I was like, this is crazy. I hit the USA Today bestseller list. I didn't even know. Someone had to tell me because I just was like, it didn't even occur to me.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it. It was just this magic ride that actually, when Amazon bought the book and I pulled them wide, they put like a hard stop to that train that was really, really taking off.
Oh, that's
Was
interesting.
gaining more and more momentum. And so it stopped it obviously on all the other retailers because the book was gone.
Yeah.
And yeah, they played a role in selling, a couple 300,000 more copies of the book. But I feel like had they not come along and I would have left it where it was, it would have continued to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just hard to say.
Yeah. So do you think that you would have like had the opportunity to go back? Would you do it differently going in?
Yeah, I totally wouldn't have sold it to Amazon.
Yeah. Hey,
Is it
that's
like a horrible thing to say?
No,
But here's the thing.
true.
I asked for my rights back, and I
Yeah.
own those books again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that was
smart choice.
that was
yeah.
that was a big deal to me because I feel that people think once you've sold your book somewhere, you can never access them again. And
Yeah.
to be like, really, to be fair, Amazon was like, we just want you to be happy. And I said, I'm really not. I just want you to give me my books back.
Yeah.
Because at that point, they'd owned them for so long and they were so buried in their catalog
Yeah.
of romance that they were never promoting them anymore. They were just, sitting there. And I was like, I still love these books.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I still love this story. Can I please have it back? And they were like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I'm like, that's amazing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So do you think for you, part of the indie appeal is the control? You have
Yes.
all of the
100%.
power, all of the everything.
Yes.
So
Yes.
So do you think that it's kind of like half of a dozen, six of one, half of a dozen of another. Do you think Amazon is too flooded with books to allow anyone to be successful anymore. Do you understand what
No.
I'm saying?
I totally do.
Okay.
But I will tell you that, like, it's really interesting that you asked that, because I have seen a lot of newer authors kind of giving that sentiment of, oh, it's oversaturated. The market is too crowded. And I just want to be like, hey, we've literally been saying the exact same thing for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like that sentiment has not changed.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we have been saying, once KU came in, it changed everything. And you have these authors that started right away in Kindle Unlimited, and now they're called like the KU darlings. And so everything that they do goes crazy because they've built this really loyal KU audience. Where I messed up is going KU and wide and KU and wide and KU and wide. And so you don't build this cohesive audience that is always expecting stuff from you. But no, I mean, yes, it is, of course, an oversaturated market. It is. There are so many books that get released in a day. I mean, it's not the thing that I always say is like, oh, it's not enough to write a book if people don't know it exists.
Yeah.
But it's so hard. How do you reach these people? I would say that the advertising market has gotten very competitive and really oversaturated, and has turned it into something that is so unaffordable and unattainable for most people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I think is the issue, honestly.
Yeah. I had a client once who was working with a marketing company that managed the Amazon ads. And it was interesting because she had worked with, a lot of small press publishers, but she hadn't worked with indie and a lot of romance. And so she was trying all different sorts of things. But each time she'd hit on what worked, it was always the most expensive option. Like,
yes,
it
100%.
Yeah, it
yes.
drives the prices up. So that only the super selling authors can afford, to do that.
Yes.
So it's, you come back and you go, so what is it? What is the answer? What is the answer to how do people see it be seen? That's probably the number one thing. If you can get visible, if you could be in front of audiences, will they give you a shot?
Feel like that's the age-old question always is trying to be seen. I mean, and since I've been around for so long, I was around when Facebook was really like, hey, we want to be the home for every small business. If you're a small business, create your business page with us, because we'll put you directly in front of all of your
audience.
Yes, all of your clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we do this, we cultivate this, you build this audience of 70,000 followers, you are talking directly to them, and then literally overnight, Facebook changes the algorithm and says, can't reach your people anymore unless you pay to boost your post.
Right.
And we really literally went from, if I would say, hey, I have a new book release, and it would go to all 50,000 people following me, that's a huge deal for me on Facebook. Just not paying for an ad, actually going to the people who are following me because they want to hear what I say, to you changing it overnight. And now I would do a post and it would literally say, seen by 14 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, we were like, what do you mean seen by 14 people? Like, I have 50,000 followers. How are only yesterday 49,000 of them saw this post, right? And today it's only 15. So you have these businesses that really changed things on us and made it impossible.
Yeah.
Like, made it impossible.
It's interesting that you should mention Facebook. Just recently, within the last couple of weeks, someone posted that they mathematically figured out the percentage as they scrolled. And it was like the largest percent were suggested posts. Like, you might suggested posts. And it was like something like 70% of all the posts that you see on Facebook were like suggested posts. And then there was
Wow.
like, 15% were sponsored posts. So
Were
these were
ads, yeah.
ads. And then
Mhm.
only like 3% were people that you actually are friends with or follow.
You're followed.
Yeah. So, I mean,
That's
that,
awful.
yeah, I mean, that
Mhm.
it is, but
That
that's,
that also makes me so mad because I remember when they changed all that. I remember when they changed the news feed and when I was like,
Mhm.
who is this? Like, I actually want to see the people I follow.
yeah,
I follow them for a reason. Like, don't tell me what you think I want to see. Don't think for me. I
yeah,
don't like that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's exactly what they're doing.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And,
It
and
infuriating.
really, Instagram did the same thing. The place that I'm
Well,
liking right
we're
now,
owned by the same person.
yeah, yeah. But Threads is also, and that's what I was going to say. I
But
really like
yeah,
Threads right now because
for now.
for now,
Yeah.
For
and it
now.
feels like exactly what you were just saying is that as soon as they change the algorithm,
They're gonna ruin
yeah,
it.
they're going to ruin it. So, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, speaking
Yep.
of Threads, I follow you on Threads, and I think it was a couple weeks ago that I saw this post and I wrote it down. Um, you said no one talks about how hard it is when you were a best-selling indie author who had readers clamoring for your next release, and then it all just stops. And you're wondering now what the F to do to get it back. What did you do wrong? What the fuck happened? What do you think did happen? I mean, we talked a little bit about it before, that the whole
Yeah. I mean,
Amazon, buying you and then paying
changes
you.
changes out of my control are definitely a factor. Um, I will say that I mean, I've had people say to me, like, I am a huge fan of yours, Jen. I didn't even know you'd written anything since The Perfect Game.
Mm.
And I'm like,
Mm,
how? Like that book was 12 years old. I've written 30 more books since then. It's just like how so what am I doing wrong that's not reaching these people? How
right.
are they not seeing this? How are they missing this? And I mean, I would like to say like I didn't do anything wrong except for I didn't play the game. I didn't kill myself to write 8 books a year
Yeah.
because the way that I believe is very much I want to be doing this for a very long time. So I don't believe in setting myself up for something that isn't sustainable
Right.
for me. And so I don't really care what other people are doing. I don't write to market in a sense, right? Like
Right.
I won't write something I don't want to tell because I think it's going to sell. I struggle with the artist and the business side. The artist for me always wins.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, those girls that are making millions of dollars, the business side wins for them. And I just don't have that in me. I need to marry the two and I struggle with that.
Yeah.
But I won't do the certain things that maybe if you're in KU, they want you to be putting out a book every 90 days or every whatever, at least write 8 books a year. And I'm like, I can maybe do that one time and then never again. Like that's not
Yeah.
sustainable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How is that setting me up for anything that's like not failure past that? Like it's so hard figuring out what works for you. And for me, I just want to be consistent. I'm a 3 book a year writer. That's what it
Yeah.
is. I'm going to release 3 books a year. Why isn't that enough?
Yeah.
That's a
Why
lot.
isn't 3 books a year enough?
That's a lot.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I actually have similar thoughts. I mean, Matt has probably heard this ad nauseum, but my feelings are that's not sustainable. I've seen this before on the traditional side. Inevitably, they hit the best-selling status. Now, this is pre-indie. So let's be
Yeah.
clear about that. This is
Okay.
pre-indie, pre-self-publish, when vanity presses were self-published and nobody stepped into those.
Yeah.
But back in the day, once they hit the bestseller list, they continued to hit the bestseller list because the New York Times was like, hey, this author hit it last time. Let's check with the sales. Oh, it looks like they're going to hit it this time. You're automatically in.
Yeah.
But what I started to notice is this flow of these best-selling authors that stayed the same. And I'm not talking about writing the same books, but their style of writing, their what they were, like topics they were tackling, all stayed the same. But me as a human being was growing. And I didn't like those books anymore.
You outgrew them.
I outgrew them. So
Yeah.
I have always said your best marketing tool is writing a damn good book because, again, referencing traditional publishing, pre-indie, but I do feel I am hearing the same thing from indie authors. It's really your backlist that sustains you while you write those new books and are finding the new audience.
Right.
You're, again, traditional publishing back in the day, you'd get your royalty checks, and that's what got you through to the next book. That's what,
Yeah.
pays for the cover, pays for the marketing, pays for the, whatever. But the problem is, like, when I hear you talk about these authors that are buying ads, spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to get that return,
Yeah.
to me, that is not sustainable because where is the art? Where is the craft in the story? And I wonder if someone would keep track of those artists, of those authors, do they stay where they are simply by paying, like you say, pay to play? And I just don't know if that's the case.
I mean, I feel like the handful of people that I'm thinking about off the top of my head that I know for a fact are doing this, have really built an audience that loves their books regardless of what it is, and they just don't.
Yeah.
They don't care. Like, it doesn't have to be this. It can be a completely forgettable story,
Oh.
and they don't care. But all of them also are in KU. So it's also very much for a reader like, oh, I don't care if I didn't love this book because I didn't quote unquote pay for it. There's no risk.
There's no risk. Yeah.
There's no risk if you're.
Yeah. So, I mean.
But I mean, also, how could you care if you're spending $1 million a year and you're making $5 million? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd be like, I don't care. I'll spend $1 million all day long to profit $5 million. Like, are you joking? I'll do that till that stops working.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah,
but the majority of people don't have that. The majority of people, and it's so weird for me to say because realistically, I know the majority of people don't have that kind of money, but I'm like, but everyone I know is spending that money.
Yeah.
So it's like this total conflict in me. I'm like, all of my like friends are actually spending this money.
Yeah.
But that's not reality. Like, that's not that's got to be like such a small percentage of people who are writing. And I also have to remind myself of that.
Yeah. But eventually, see, I keep coming back to the fact that it's not sustainable. And I'm not saying 5 years, perhaps 10. But I think in long term, like you said you are trying to build a career that you can take into and beyond retirement. You can do forever. I am just not sure what they're doing is sustainable because eventually the reader is going to take note if these books aren't that great. They're going to move on to the next person. And,
but maybe by then they have so much money in the bank, they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah. And that's
just
fine. That's just fine.
I know. I'm just I'm not that way.
That's me too, because I would rather see people that are really building quality stories. And like, I want to follow someone long term and read them until I started in the industry when it was like the golden age of the 90s in romance, where you had all the J's, Julie Garwood, Judith McNaught. Oh God, who am I?
I didn't read, and I don't even know who these people are either. I didn't read. I really was not a reader.
Yeah, and eventually they did. They either stopped writing because they aged out, or a lot of them have sadly passed away, or they just write something different. Like I'm thinking Jane Ann Krentz. I think she almost strictly does, not the contemporary romances anymore, but like the mysteries. And then I think she still does her Amanda Quick stuff.
That's cool.
But yeah. So I think, again, I'm always thinking long term because
Yeah, so am I.
I have never met an author who didn't say that they wanted to make this their career
Forever.
forever. And just
Yeah, how can you not?
I just want to keep telling my stories. But
Yeah.
the question always becomes, how do you get to that point where you can either drop the day job, or it can sustain you after retirement, or it can pay the bills, or whatever it is that the goal is. It's just, how do you get seen?
Do you
Yeah.
feel like the majority of newer authors that you've interacted with, because I don't always interact with a lot of newer authors, but like people that don't you feel like when they're just starting out, they're very much like focused on the art and the storytelling and the business is a secondary, or do they come at it from, no, I want to make the money. What do I need? What do I need to write to make the money?
Okay. So I firmly believe I only attract the people that want to work with the craft and the storytelling, because that's who I am. And when we interact and talk, it is about, how can you improve your writing? How can you be more confident? I think confidence is the one thing that this industry does not talk enough about.
Yeah, I would say we don't talk about it at all, honestly.
No, we don't.
I feel like we've never even thought about it.
Well, and the thing is, a lot of them say, I want to try this in my story, but I'm scared to. It won't sell. It won't.
I understand. That I understand.
Yeah. And so,
yeah, there's a theater, of
but
course.
I think about some of my favorite writers, which I know that you're friends with some of them. Taryn Fisher, I talk about her a lot on this podcast.
Yes.
Because she is, to me...
Oh, I'm very good friends with Taryn.
She is magic. And the magic...
She's incredible.
...is not only in the stories, but it's in her confidence to tell them. Like, she doesn't give an F.
No.
About
but also
what's
the
trend.
Stuff that she's writing, like that's how her brain thinks. Like that's how she is. So it's very much like I read some of her stuff and I'm like, God, I could never write this because I would never even think about this. I don't think like that. Taryn thinks in crazy terms. So she can write the crazy.
Right. But I think she also knows herself enough. And this is what I'm talking about with the confidence. Like, she knows I'm a 1 book a year person. I take my time in writing. I think even Colleen Hoover said, we're so opposite in writing that Taryn takes every sentence and crafts it to perfection before moving on. And now, while I'm not suggesting anyone do that, because like you said, Taryn thinks the way she thinks, but I think there's a lot to be said for someone who takes their time, knows that they don't write 8 books a year. Like you said, you write 3. You are comfortable with 3. You tell a good story with 3. That's what you get. And I think the more confident, I almost wonder if Taryn Fisher, yes, like I said, I respect the writing, love her stuff, but there's also part of me that says it's the energy she puts out to her readers. This is who I am. These are my stories. You're welcome to read them or not. And she walks on, She's not obsessed over, did I write the right story? Have I spent enough money? I'm going to assume she's not one of those ones that are spending millions of dollars on ads.
I think too, for a lot of authors, and this just becomes something that just takes a little bit of time and writing a little bit more stories, is getting comfortable with, for me, I'm hey, I know that the majority of you guys want a really sexy book, a really spicy, smutty book. Well, you're not going to get that from me because it's not how I write.
Yeah.
I'm a light spice kind of girl. You're going to get a little bit of spice, but you're going to get a lot of heart in my books. I'm an emotional storyteller. There is always an open door sex scene in my books, but you're never going to walk away from my book being so riled up that you can't wait to attack your man later.
Yeah.
It's just not the way I write. Yeah. And I also don't want to. I just am no, this is the kind of storyteller I am.
Yeah.
This is how I tell a story. I get very invested in the characters I want to tell. I write what I know. I really like to feel like I write a realistic romance. And I am comfortable writing, producing 3 books a year.
Yeah.
And that's what you're going to get. And if maybe if I'm on a roll, you might get 4, but that's going to be a rarity. So it's really also knowing the kind of writer I am, how I'm going to produce, how often I'm going to produce, and then be like, how do I make this work for me?
Yeah.
How do I make 3 books a year, sustain my career? How do I make a living off of this?
Yeah. Yeah. There was a friend of mine who has a business that's not even close to publishing. It's a different business entirely. But she always talks about how if you are you in your business, so if we translate that to writing, if you are you in your writing, unapologetically, confidently, that your readers will chase you. In her words, it was the money chases you. You are not chasing the money. And I am just like you. I'm like, I only see people who are chasing the money and getting the money.
I know.
And it's
I know.
It's like, no, because I do believe she's right. I like all of the authors that I've worked with throughout my career, almost 30 years now, every single one of them that became a success all had that same sort of component that Taryn Fisher has. That confidence, that, almost like, I don't care if the money is chasing me, I'm chasing my art. And I just,
she is very, very artist driven.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But she also is very aware of what she's doing because she's very smart.
Yeah.
So she also is very purposeful in the image she puts out.
Yeah.
And what she does. I mean, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that she is not like that, but she knows what she's doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just thinking about kind of the newest stuff that you've released here. Tell us a little bit about Worth the Fall, and let's dive into that.
Yeah. So I for the first time ever last year didn't write for 10 months. I was so burnt out of romance, and I gave myself a genuine break. I was just like, I couldn't even read a romance book. I would try and read it, and I was like, these are awful. They're all so stupid. Everything I've ever written is so dumb. Everything everyone writes is so dumb. I can't read it, right? I just hated everything. I was so burnt out, and I was like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to watch movies and TV shows for the next year. I really thought I wasn't, and I thought I was really broken, that I wasn't going to ever be able to write another romance book again. So I was like, gosh, what other genre am I going to write? Because it wasn't that I was never going to write again. It's just I wasn't going to write romance anymore. So like, what was I going to write? And then literally one night, I just had an idea of, oh my God, I have these 3 brothers in my head. It's a small town romance. I'd like to write a small town romance series. And I was like, maybe I should read one first, because I had no idea anything about what small town romance entailed, other than it just sounded so joyful. Like it just sounded like, oh, this just sounds so sweet and so happy. Let me read a couple small town romances and see why people are like jonesing for them. What do people love about them? And I read them, and I felt like I really got a handle on why they were such great sellers right now and why readers did love them. And it gave me the like, oh my gosh, these books don't have to be over the top drama. There doesn't have to be these, this drama for the sake of adding page reads. It's just they're typically a little bit older couple, so they're a little bit more mature in their relationship. And a lot of times the drama comes from an outside source instead of within their, the 2 that I read were like that. So that's kind of what gave me the foundation for writing. And then I don't know, it just all came together. I got really, really excited. It's so Worth the Fall is the first book that's out. It's the first time I've ever written a single dad. It's the second single parent that I've ever written, which is crazy because I was a single mom forever. But that's probably why I didn't write Fits. So it was my first small town romance, first single dad, a workplace romance, a really strong female character who, a very important story for me to tell, is very personal to me in terms of like her getting divorced and leaving a marriage, not because anything was wrong, but because she wasn't happy. and I can really, really relate to that. So I felt like I just had a few like important, just kind of messages to put in the book, but that the basis of it would just be that it made you happy to read it, and that you can't wait for the next Brothers books when you get to the end. Like, that's what I hope I did.
Yeah.
I really, to be honest, it's like the best first line I've ever written in my life. And I feel like the best
Yes.
first chapter
Yep.
I have ever crafted,
Yeah.
ever.
Yep. Yep.
And
The reason I'm saying yep is because I read it, and that's exactly what I was thinking as those first pages was like, oh my God.
I've never written anything like that.
Yeah. And it is so emotionally gripping. And of course, then, is I didn't know actually going in that you had made it a trilogy. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, well, the brothers, of course, they're going to get stories. I know it,
Yes.
And then I think just a few days later, you had written that you completed the final book. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, like, yes, small town romance, you've got it. You've got that. I always call them like the Hallmark style.
Totally
small-
the Hallmark town.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
That's really my only inspiration. I didn't grow up in a small
yeah. Well, I did a very small town, but I don't know any guys like these guys. I don't know.
I
any.
mean, none of us do.
Yeah. But it was so funny because it's like, okay, like I want to live in Patrick's house, and
Right?
like, yeah, and I'm blanking on his name right now. The brother that was the hockey player. I'm gonna call him
Matthew.
I was gonna call him Mark. So there we go.
Sure.
But yeah, and like I need to know his story. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
the whole thing. So yeah, I mean, it was, and it's interesting to hear you said it so different from your other books, because I was actually thinking, wow, how did you? So I'm glad that Matt asked that question, because I didn't realize that you hadn't written for 10 months. So
Yeah. No, I just didn't. And then when I had this idea, I mean, it was it. And I was so inspired and so like excited. And now I'm back in it and I can read romance again. And so it's just, I'm really proud of those books. And it's the first time I feel like it's not the first series I've written, but I was very, very, I've grown in my writing. So I was very intentional with my writing. And I feel like, oh, this is what maturing as a writer works like. It's being intentional with the seeds you're planting to the reader, where by the time you've read the third chapter, all three books that are coming.
Yeah.
I've said, I mean, probably the first chapter, Thomas's story, you meet his love interest in chapter 2, but Patrick, the middle brother, and his high school sweetheart. And then, Matthew is obsessed with the bartender, Bella.
Yeah.
I mean, like I've set up all three. So your brain is already like, oh, I know whose stories are coming next. You just don't know what's going to happen.
yeah.
But so that was really fun. It was really fun to like write that intentionally, write that purposefully. I think that's like the best book I've ever written.
Yeah. Do you think then, do you feel like your mojo is back? Like,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I feel so good. I'm so excited. I mean, I have like, I've already started the next series that I'm writing. So just the fact of having ideas of what you're going to write is what I typically struggle with, because I'm not a write to market kind of girl, because I'm not let me search out the tropes and what's trending and let me write that. And I would also never do that because I don't write fast enough to write to trends.
Right.
Like I would be like, I'm writing the alien romance and I'd get it like 10 years too late. I mean, I just would like, I just am not, I don't write that. Like it takes me months to write a book.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I tell workshops. Anybody who takes my workshops have heard me say this over and over again. Don't ever write to trend, because you're always going to be chasing it.
You're chasing a trend.
Yeah. And
instead of accidentally setting
it.
one.
Yes, exactly.
Which is kind of what I feel I
Yep.
did with The Perfect Game. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, no, I did not set the trend.
Well,
Let me take that back.
No.
I don't want to take credit for like, that's not what I mean.
yeah.
But like at the time that I wrote baseball romance, there was not like sports, like a lot of
Yeah.
sports romance
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. The only one who was doing sports romance, again, from my traditional publishing days, is Susan Elizabeth Phillips. And she was doing football. She didn't do... The only other one that I'm aware of was Elle Kennedy. But she, again...
And Elle came after,
Yeah,
and Elle
came
came
after
after
you.
me. That was
Okay.
like, her hockey book was
Yep.
2 years after The Perfect Game. Which I always know because Elle and I will have like the same foreign publisher, and the readers will be like, The Perfect Game is a knockoff of Elle Kennedy's The Deal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm
And first...
well, I've heard it first. They hate my book and they love Elle. I love Elle Kennedy's book.
Yeah.
So let me be very clear about that. I absolutely love her
Yeah,
writing.
yeah.
I love her new adult like hockey romances. I think they're so great. But it is very funny. The foreign
Yeah.
market will hate my book, but love Elle's book.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a tough character in The Perfect Game. You either love or you hate him. That's a tough story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for it being... You said it was your first book, correct?
That was my third book.
Your third book. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then maybe it doesn't quite follow this. Sylvia Day said once that you've actually got to write 3 books before you're ready to publish a book. Like, that's how long it takes you to learn how to write.
I will.
Yeah.
Yes. I will say, yeah, my first book is written horribly.
Yeah.
It's a great story that I did no justice at all whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So bad.
Well,
But
it's your practice book.
I love it.
It's your practice
Yeah.
book. That's, you kind of...
It's still, you know what? The right audience finds it and it really resonates with them because it's just such a unique story.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love that. And it is what it is. I mean, it's a debut novel. It really is a debut novel.
Yeah. So as we wind down here, let us know. So Patrick's story comes out next.
Yeah, his book 2 in Sugar Mountain series, his book will be out January 24th. And Matthew's book will be out March. I keep getting the date wrong. It's like the 18th, maybe.
Okay.
One of these days. But I release it. So I do sell what we talked about briefly. I have my own store.
Yes.
And that's also why I'm not in Kindle Unlimited, is because I sell my own ebooks.
Yeah.
So I sell my ebooks on my direct store. And so any new release comes out 2 weeks early on my direct store
Ooh, nice.
than any other retailers.
Okay.
So I end up getting a lot of sales directly for the people who are comfortable. And I feel like as the more time goes on, more and more readers are comfortable buying directly from authors.
Yeah.
If they have the chance, once they realize they can send it to their e-reader and their device.
Yeah.
It's always uncomfortable at first to try something new.
Well, yeah, because you don't, like you said, it's new to them. How do I get it to my device? How do I put it with the rest of my books? And it's like it's like the print books when are the spines all the same?
Oh my gosh, are they all the same? I'm like,
That's readers.
That's awesome. We have absolutely enjoyed having you here. We loved everything you've had to say and share. And I think there's a lot there that people can take away, right? As we kind of discuss this journey that you've gone through, the lessons that you've learned, the kind of trials and tribulations of your career. So thank you very, very much for joining us and being a part of this today.
Thank you both for having me. It was such a pleasure to be on here and the time just flew by.
Yeah.
We're so chatty.
Yes.
Well, the girls are chatty.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Jenn Sterling, for joining us. And you know what? We're just extremely happy that you've tuned in again. We hope that you continue to write, that you continue to create, and you continue to get your voice out there because that's what we're here for. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the podcast. We really hope that you're enjoying every bit of it, but we would love to hear your feedback. Drop us an email either to matt@writeoutloudpod.com or Christina@bookmatchmaker.com. We would love to hear your thoughts. What's working, what's not working, and what do you want to hear more of? Thanks so much. We really appreciate it.